And let's say you celebrate someone's success and you make a huge event. This could happen once a year, once every 2 years, right? And then some people will never maybe have a huge achievement that's the organization will set a big event to celebrate it. But at the same time, recognizing people on a daily basis and encouraging them and listening to them and paying attention and making sure that they, hey, is everything okay? How you doing? And checking in with them. This happens on a daily basis. Could happen every hour. We can experience some of those behaviors, right? So this, I think, the magic of what's interesting about micro behaviors, that we sometimes don't think about those because we think of the big behaviors that could be positive or negative, of course. But actually, most of our daily interactions that will make us feel valued or not are happening on a small scale and accumulative.
Microaffirmations. Why do they matter in your virtual team? Hi, I'm Monika Chutnik, and I help leaders learn how to lead their international and virtual teams. Together with my team in ETA Leadership and Culture, we make the change happen by means of training, coaching, or facilitation. This podcast, A Step Ahead, has been created for all who want to grow in such an international, remote environment, who want to grow as leaders, as HR, as change agents, and simply as humans. I will be delighted to know that you make progress at work and life. All recordings and materials are available at www.astepahead.pro. I wish you a sense of fun and discovery. What are microbehaviors and why do they matter? How microbehaviors translate into team performance? And finally, who can actually impact the microbehaviors in a team? These are some of the topics that we discussed together with my guest, Ben Capell. When you listen to this episode, please think about one person who could also enjoy it. There is a lot of interesting research on behaviors in organizations and also on what we can do to drive inclusion and to make sure that everybody feels they are belonging. Today, we have an amazing speaker, an amazing topic of micro affirmations, and our guest is Ben Capell. Ben, I know you do a lot of work in inclusion and organizations. How does this topic relate to what you do daily?
Yeah, thank you, Monika, first of all, for inviting me to the podcast. Pleasure to discuss this topic. Most of my work, a big part of my work has to do with helping organizations to be more inclusive. So I work in different companies, mostly now in Asia. I'm based in Hong Kong for the last 8 years, but also in Europe and in the US. And it starts from conversations with leaders on what will be their inclusion strategy, where do they believe there is a gap that they can mitigate and become more inclusive as leaders, as organizations. And then, of course, with conversations in workshops across different companies, focus groups, all that work. I find it fascinating. I really like the whole topic of dynamics in organization and how we can help people work better together, feel more energized, be more engaged. How can leaders be more aware of the dynamics in the organization, what they can do themselves to create a better workplace.
Wow. So now you work as a consultant, you work as an expert and trainer. But in fact, when I relate to how we got to know each other, it was quite a few years back in our Hewlett-Packard times. You were at that time based in Spain, in Catalonia. Yes, would you talk a little bit? And I remember that you also were later making a PhD or a Theaters Spain president. Would you just disclose a little bit about what you bring in terms of your heritage into this work?
Yeah, so I think what I bring as a heritage, I guess, first, I would start with my personal, life. I lived, moved between different countries. I have parents coming from different countries. And now it sounds like something very normal, but when I grew up in Israel, I have my mom from Israel. My father comes actually from Catalonia. And then I lived there. From a young age, I traveled across the world many times. And around 20, when I was 23 or 24, I moved to the US, right? So over the whole conversation around the diversity and inclusion was already much more developed than at that time, I think, in Europe or Israel. But I lived in different countries. I lived in Japan, and then I moved to Spain, Monika, where I think we met. I did a lot of
That's true.
in Spain, right? And I worked then for, at some point, I was the president for CIETAR, the Organization for Intercultural Research and Study. And then I worked at HP, Hewlett Packard. So I think this was really helpful for me because it's the first time I was actually involved in large scale programs that are supposed to make an impact in this area of diverse talent. As different terms, the terms sometimes change, but the same area of diversity, inclusion, equity. But at some point, as you mentioned, I just thought that it would be good for me to take a step outside of the corporate world, and then I did my PhD on the topic actually of diversity in organization. So about 3-4 years dedicating to research, and around the same time, I started to get more requests to do consulting work in the area, and then around the same time, I moved to Asia. So that's how I got to where I am at the moment.
It's quite an amazing story. So you bring so much richness into this topic, not only your personal experience and life as such, but also your professional background, your research, and all the expertise that you bring. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate. Let's talk about the microaffirmations. I'm really excited about this topic. If you may just comment a little bit, if we watch them from a broader perspective, they generally belong to the group of micro behaviors at work. So what are those micro behaviors? Do we have them everywhere or only in some places?
Yeah, wonderful. Monika, I think it's a great topic. I think it's a great question. And the whole topic of micro behaviors is the understanding that many times most of the time, the messages that we send people, whether they are included or excluded, or whether we want to be with them, whether we value them, we respect them, those are micro messages that happens on a daily basis. Sometimes in one conversation, we can have a lot of those, right? Those are small behaviors. So I want to give an example. I know we will talk more about microaffirmation, that other type of behaviors like microaggression, microinequities. But I think even if I talk about microaffirmation, let's say you celebrate someone's success and you make a huge event. This could happen once a year, once every 2 years, right? And then some people will never maybe have a huge achievement that the organization will set a big event to celebrate it. But at the same time, recognizing people on a daily basis and encouraging them and listening to them and paying attention and making sure that hey, is everything okay? How you doing? And checking in with them. This happens on a daily basis. Could happen every hour. We can experience some of those behaviors, right? So this, I think, the magic of what's interesting about micro behaviors, that we sometimes don't think about those because we think of the big behaviors that could be positive or negative, of course. But actually, most of our daily interactions that will make us feel valued or not are happening on a small scale and accumulative. And since around the 70s, people started looking into it. So a professor from MIT, Rowe, she started looking into that topic, and she understood it. Oh, wait, like we talk about the big behaviors, but there's also micro behaviors that make a huge difference. And this is kind of the conversation around that. It's centered around the small behaviors on a daily basis, hourly basis almost.
Indeed. For example, in leadership trainings, we focus on those large events. Well, they don't have to be extremely large, but for example, a feedback conversation is like a special opportunity in itself. It's like a special meeting, a separate thing, yes? And what we want to concentrate on in the conversation today are all those little things, like as I'm listening to you, I'm nodding my head, we can see each other on the video, and you can feel, yes, we're on the right track. So these would be the little micro affirmations that give us encouragement, that give us the empowerment, that give us the willingness to move on. Why are they relevant in business? Why are they so relevant in teams? Why would we want to explore that in business?
Yeah, I think I guess you can look at it at two levels. One level is that we get more out of people, right? In terms of motivation, how they feel. If you look at it from a business perspective, you will probably practice microaffirmation. The question is, you mentioned the word, earlier on you said everyone feel included, but do we consciously make sure that everyone receive the doses of microaffirmation that will help them feel encouraged, understood, motivated, invited to contribute? Or maybe not everyone does. And when we accumulate all this energy together, right, are we just having a small group in the organization where the one that will feel engaged or motivated, or actually do we have larger group, or ideally everyone can feel the same. But it also at another level, which we can look at it as, if I'm invited, I contribute more. You'll hear more of my ideas. I will pay attention to what you say, but maybe if I ignore you, I could either, let's say we ignore someone after a few intents, or that people don't give them eye contact, people turn their back in a way, maybe not literally, but from attention wise, and not encouraging them. Maybe they will stop contributing, or maybe they contribute really, really important stuff, but we just don't pay attention to it. So all this together is one of the elements that we want to recognize, that how people feel, how open we are to their contribution, how much we encourage them, is important a lot to the people themselves, which is super important, of course, but also to the contribution they will make to our organization and how we grow as an organization.
So this actually resonates with very different topics that have become quite hot topics in business recently, especially in the virtual context. The challenge of how to make people belong. Would micro affirmations be one of the ways to make it happen? The challenge of the psychological safety in a team. Would micro affirmations be one of the ways to obtain that? The challenge of having people engagement and contribution. And again, the micro affirmations is maybe one of the simplest and most powerful tools to make it happen, to really help handle the challenges of leaders and teams in the virtual context and not only. So I wonder how you perceive it when we talk about those micro behaviors. There is a lot of media, a lot of publishing made on micro aggressions. Surely they are very relevant. There is very little on micro affirmations. That's why I'm inviting you also as a guest. That's why we're having this conversation. What's the balance? How do you perceive this? Why is it so?
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize both actually, because they're both related to inclusion, and they're both related to virtual worlds. So we are kind of expanding the conversation a little bit. I will start with inclusion and I'll talk about microaggression and microinequity, different similar terms. One of the things that we know is that we have a tendency to form in-groups and out-groups. This is, it's a bias, it exists. It's our, tendency to operate like a clan. In a way, we close around the people that are more similar to us. We find similarities with them. Now, the relationship to microaffirmation and microaggressions or microinequities is we tend to give more microaffirmations to people that we consider to be in our in-group. We pay more attention to them. It's more, in a way, probably the back of our mind, it's more important for them to feel good, to feel respected, to feel invited, to be successful. We open the door a little bit wider for them unconsciously, but that's what it happens. And of course, also if someone in hierarchy. So I want to give an example. We talked about eye contact and using video. So if I speak with my, let's say, manager, right, then let's say I will make sure I'm on time, right? I will turn the video on. I will smile a lot. I will pay attention. But now I want you to imagine someone that are at a lower status in the group. Or that I don't, outsider to me, right? Of course, it's all related to the topic of diversity, and I know we're not getting it necessarily into it today, but I want you to imagine someone that I feel very differently towards them. Maybe unconsciously I do. They may get much less of this microaffirmation. Let's say I'm joining a little bit late to the call. I apologize, but I joined late. I already told, in a way, I signaled to them, this call is not as important. I may not turn my video on. They may notice that I'm doing something at the background. So all those small signals, right, that could tell them, actually, I'm not fully present here. I'm not fully valuing what you're saying at the moment.
And they are also, in the perception, they are detaching us from each other. Because when I see, let's say, you behave this way, then my willingness to get excited about what we converse about, what we talk about, is diminishing.
Completely. I'm fading, right? So now I'm fading. Now, so probably to most of us, right, there are some people that we will naturally be affirming, in a way, that's the term at least, making sure they feel included, but we won't even think about that. We just extend this love and care and attention to them, and there are some people maybe that will receive less on that. Now, if it happens once in a day, it's okay, but when it starts accumulating, that for some people on a daily basis, they receive much less of this attention that we talked about, these signals that are valued. They, as you just said, Monika, they will start fading. We may lose them. They will, maybe they'll come to work, but is it exciting working in an organization where people don't pay attention to you? I go now to microaggressions. You use the term that people mix up your name with someone else, that people keep on asking you, where are you from? All those behaviors we don't want to encourage. What we want to encourage is exactly what we're talking about now. We want to encourage the microaffirmation. We want to make sure that we consciously, and I use the word consciously, do our best so everyone will feel included. Everyone will feel that I'm paying attention to them, that I remember who they are, that I remember the name, that I'm opening the door for them when they come to the elevator, and the elevator is about to close the door, and I'm pressing on that button and say, welcome, good morning, and they can, so this is type of behaviors we want to encourage. And I want to mention something.
They seem to be very simple, very manageable. And you are very right to say that we do more of these things to people that we feel good with. And we tend to do less of these things with people who we are a little bit more distanced to. And the paradox is that the less we do these things, the bigger the distance becomes, the interpersonal distance.
Yeah, completely. And I think... And I guess there is also the personal element. Some people by nature, they will do more of it, and people just feel it's always nice to have a conversation with them. People always feel appreciate and respect. And I guess some people will do by nature, they will do much less of it. So we can look at it from absolute and relative perspective, like as a person, how much do you do that? You could look at it also from, are there some people that you tend to practice this and with others you don't, or maybe you practice something else, unconsciously. And then there is the point about virtual, which you mentioned, and I want to add an element to it. We start having tons of conversations around hybrid workplaces. So imagine now, and virtual, it's kind of virtual, it's almost like 3 years old news, but do we start a call and I'm checking how you doing, how was your day, or do I just just go immediately to business? Do I send you an email and making sure that if there are updates, that everyone says update? Do I, chronically, for whatever reason, I forget to include you in the email, right? When we have a call and someone speaks, is it possible that suddenly most of the team switches off? It's just clear that they switch off. And then when someone else speaks, everyone now pays attention and smiling. So all those these are, those small behaviors, they use micro, and there is an argument should be used the word micro because the impact it's huge, right? But those are messages we're sending people how much we value.
Again and again and again and again, the small messages that we keep sending to each other.
Completely. Mm-hmm. And I think the relationship to hybrid world, because I get more and more questions about that, is I think usually we'll give more of that to people that are in the same room as us. So if we do a hybrid call and now there are 2 people, 3 people sitting next to me and few people are connecting remotely, will I accidentally speak over the ones that are on call? Maybe even put them on mute and I don't even know that because then I'm speaking, having a side conversation and I'm passing notes. I mean, like, do I end up kind of making the ones that are calling in from afar feeling not as valued as if they were in the room? I think that's a connection to a hybrid world, mm-hmm. the hybrid world we are starting experimenting with now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, that's very true. I've just been to a hybrid conference and I was the in-person participant, and still people who were not able to attend in person were able to connect virtually, which worked very well in terms of getting the content. When there was a speaker, when there was a lecture, a presentation, they could see all the whole room and the speaker through the video. They could participate in the chat. They could take screenshots. They saw the same slides. So content-wise, it was very approachable. But when it comes to building the human connection, there was basically almost none of it. Even if some participants were writing on chat, please, could you speak louder? Could you please come to the microphone because we cannot hear? The speakers, as they are in the room, they move around, not always close to a fixed microphone, which is in a certain area of the room. these comments seem to be so irrelevant to the face-to-face meeting, they were not even noticed, not even by Congress assistants, whose role was to watch these things, because the on-site experience was so strong. And this left the other people out, not to mention having any kind of a smile or a conversation or any kind of a feeling of belonging. So in fact, they became passive observers of something that was happening in the room. And there was not at all any added value of them participating, contributing, which is a loss. We still need to learn to do that on an event like this. There's plenty of people in the room. We need to learn to balance. I was the only one in the whole room who was connecting both, online to the online session and was present face to face. This gave me an opportunity to have a little chat in the online session, maybe to respond to some questions that were appearing if somebody didn't see a link or needed something to be repeated. So at least this was something, but I was the only one among the crowd of 50, for example. So this tells we as a society, as professionals, we need to learn to navigate this hybrid world, and also to make sure that we can give those little micro affirmations to each other.
And I'll take it. It's wonderful. I'm working on an event that will be hybrid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm moving. This is one of the things that I'm paying attention to, because there's few things here. One is that you don't get the people contribution. You're trying to co-create something together, but then the ones outside, maybe you're just losing them, right? You're just losing them, and they need to buy in, or and there is frustration. You're just sitting there, not listening, not getting attention from the other people in the room. And again, for transmitting information, it's okay, but for co-creating something, it's not. But then there is one more level. I like to take this example. So now let's forget about hybrid. Is it possible that even at the face-to-face interactions that we're having, we have some people that are not really part, that we turn their back against them or facing? So is it possible that maybe not to the same extent? I agree, like hybrid will be stronger, but it could be like small behaviors on a daily basis from who we asking, hey, would you like to come to lunch with us? I'm just, throwing out ideas, right? And hey, how was your weekend? And how was this? And remembering things about them that are important for them. And is it possible that even if we're all in the same office, some people will feel as if they're at the periphery? And if so, how can we use micro affirmations to bring them in, to make them feel that they are part of our team, right, of our in-group?
Yes, that's precisely the point. The micro affirmations, the little behaviors, they help all of us feel that we are in the same gang, if we if we may put it this way. So what are these? Let's name a few. We already mentioned them, but they have been scattered. So this would be, for example, keeping the eye contact with somebody, yes? Or when I look at somebody, I smile, yes? That's a simple thing. That's a simple thing. Or how frequently do I look at people? Do I look at everybody frequently enough, if I may say so? Yes. So that's it. There will be this little, what I noticed when, as you are talking to me today, you've been mentioning my name, and every time you mentioned my name, it was maybe twice, I was like, this kind of a very positive feeling that somehow bringing connection. So using each other's first names might be another way to do those small micro affirmations. So it's all very manageable. It's all very doable in a face-to-face and in a virtual context.
Definitely. We're not asking for something big. So, we started a conversation. We talked about putting someone on the podium as a unique event that some people may not ever experience, and not everyone is maybe making an achievement that means they get the company yearly award. So, but on a daily basis, what is that we can do? And if you permit me, Monika, I will connect a little bit to the topic of diversity, just because it's in my mind, I think we need to recognize that some people get more of it and some people get less of it. So, but there will be examples like, as you mentioned, eye contact, body language, everything about acknowledging people's contribution, what they say, give people, checking in on them. Hey, how you doing? How was your weekend? Oh, yeah, I remember you said that you were going with your family somewhere, right? How was it? So all those small behaviors on a personal level tell others that they exist. We know you are here.
On the personal level, I'm making it very explicit because many leaders need to learn to remember about that explicitly in a virtual contact.
Yes, and what we also know when it comes to virtual contact is that we tend to. So I want you to, we talked a little bit about in groups and out groups, right? And we will do all that more to the people that are in our in group, meaning that when I work virtually, let's say, Monika, we have a call and we are friends. So I will do all that. I will check with you. How you doing? And maybe if we belong to the same hobby, book club, whatever it is, right? So I will do that. But maybe someone else, I don't have the same links.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I have them, before I have them, until I have them, I need to do all that. I need to remember to proactively maybe have a post-it next to me, because it makes a difference to the people that I interact with, especially if I'm the manager, especially if I'm a senior team member. It gives even a little bit more weight to it. Now it's about building on people's ideas, encouraging them to talk. So if virtual call, you may have some people dominating the conversations, and some people say something and immediately someone will speak over. So it's about, oh, hey, wait, I think, Sarah had something to say. Sarah, can you repeat? I think it was a great comment. And you bring people in, right? It's, but now the connection to, it was a little bit, I like the idea that you mentioned about the name, because this brings us a little bit to the intersection with diversity. So, Monika, your name is easy for me to pronounce, right, Monika? But let's say you had a name that is more difficult for me to pronounce, or that I'm not used to.
Małgorzata, another Polish name, huh? Małgorzata.
For example,
my second name actually is Katarzyna. It's like Catherine, but the Polish version, Katarzyna.
So let's say Katarzyna, right? And let's say it's difficult for me, or let's say I kind of keep on forgetting and I'm unsure. So now I sit with Monika and I sit with Katarzyna, and maybe with 5 other people, and I say, yes, Sarah, yes, John, yes, Monika. I skip over Katarzyna because I'm not unsure how to say. Maybe I call her Kathy because that's easy for me. I never asked Katarzyna if it's okay to call her Kathy, but hey, it's just too difficult for me to spend 2 minutes and remembering the name. So this is the connection to, when we talk about diversity and inclusion. So do I need to make sure that I'm really inclusive to Katarzyna? What do I need to do? It's about consciousness, right? It's about remembering that's Katarzyna's name. If I need to, I write it on a post-it. So I ask everyone, I use everyone's name, and I say the name in the right way. I had conversations with leaders, very senior actually, that they sometimes say, I just realized, through the session today, there are some people that I don't invite to speak on my calls because I don't know how to pronounce their name. And I'm kind of, did you ask them how to pronounce their name? And they, no, I should do that then. Okay, it doesn't take that much, right? It's not about creating a new program for, like talent development. It's asking people what's their name, connecting with them, looking at them in the eyes, having, encouraging them. You come to the office, you see them there. Hey, let's have coffee together just to see how you're doing. It's
the little things.
Small behaviors. Yeah, little things.
Or as you are talking, I'm nodding, I'm just, moving my head, and this gives you another confirmation. So this is another microaffirmation here. So they seem to be very obtainable and very simple. I really like the piece which you mentioned about asking people to speak up, especially in virtual teams. A famous research made by Google a few years back was checking what are the features of high-performing teams. And Google was making a research on its own organism, on its own company, on the teams in Google. And we all can imagine Google teams might be, willing to be the best in the world, like in many companies. So Google was, checking the features of a leader. Does it matter that a leader is a male or a female, or maybe a senior or a junior, or maybe, and it turned out that it all did not matter so much. It did not even matter whether the leader had a basic education or, the Harvard University MBA, any kind of elaborate education. What really mattered and was directly translating into the team performance and this kind of perceived attractiveness, like everybody wanted to belong to those teams. But why? In those teams, these were the teams where everybody could speak. It's just so smashingly simple. I can't believe it. So the only role of a leader is to make sure that everybody gets a say and it's listened to. It's so simple. So it would be both a micro affirmation, inviting everybody to speak, a sign of inclusion, a sign of respect by listening, and bringing the high performing team to life. That's basically simple and powerful.
Yeah, I know this study, yeah, about the psychological safety, right? How do we create an environment? And again, like, do everyone feel safe? What do I need to do to look, what are the blind spots, and how do I extend those microaffirmation invitations to everyone? And there is one thing I would just add a little bit. So it's not about everyone speaks. I think it's at the same time we speak, we listen to each other, we comment, we build to each on each other's ideas, right? So it's not just people shouting at the microphone. It's actually people we're having a conversation, and I don't get. And it's not risky for me to come with ideas and to share my views, and that's part of psychological safety, right? It's about safety means that there is no risk. It's okay. I'm invited. We build on each other idea. We don't blame each other. And it also relates to by the way, I can be myself, right? I feel comfortable. I'm included in the team, regardless maybe of the fact that maybe something about me, my background is a little bit different. So all this contributes, right? All this invitation, I think, to be part, and the small messages signals that we get on a daily basis. Am I invited? Are people listening to me? Are people building to my idea? People value me? And when the answer is yes to all that, and a few more, we will contribute more. We'll share our points of view. We'll feel more motivated. We'll be more engaged. So yeah, I think that's micro behaviors, but huge impact.
Now with the situation in the Eastern Europe, we in Poland have plenty of people from Ukraine who have found a safe place here. And the kids join the Polish classes, and obviously we also meet as parents. I recently noticed a situation. As a group of parents, we all take our kids to the swimming pool, yes, because it's a bit more far away. We need to drive the kids to the swimming pool. So there is everybody, joining, and everybody says, hello, how are you? And faster, with the kids, we're always in a hurry. And there is this Ukrainian woman coming with her son, and she's also doing the same. She's in a hurry. She asks the kid to change clothes and all these things, but she does not receive this hello, how are you, or just good morning. She just does not receive, because the people are uncertain, like should they greet her in Polish, or maybe they don't know Ukrainian, or maybe they know how to say it in Russian, but would it be adequate or not? And the outcome is she comes into this room full of parents and kids, and there is this effect as if there was an invisible bubble around her, and it's as if she was an invisible person in itself. And I noticed this happening the other day, and I just thought, I will start saying hello. We do not know each other, yes, yet we are very maybe awkward. We did not have an opportunity to have a chat. Maybe we don't even know what's the common language for us, but I just started saying hello, just good morning. And I did it explicitly, and I noticed that once I started doing it, the other parents kind of took their courage to follow, and it's not like everybody, it's not like a wave suddenly now everybody shouts hello, good morning, but it just started changing gradually. So I'm sharing this very simple example from a primary school to show leaders that actually being the role model really matters. Showing other people that you can sometimes also take the courage to risk, maybe to ask what is really your name, maybe to ask, do you understand this language or that language better, which is better for you? Just to take the lead. This is the role of the leaders after all. But the great thing is that it does not have to be a leader. It can be any team member who can also start creating this inclusive and atmosphere by doing those tiny little behaviors that are called microaffirmations, and then bring so much.
Yeah, I agree. I think it at the individual level is something everyone should do, can do. I think at the same time, and I'm not contradicting, I'm adding to it. It's I think leaders have a bigger role here. I mean, because I think research will tell us that people will follow leaders are role models, and if a lead
Absolutely, a leader has a bigger impact, but anybody can start. I think we agree here. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, anybody can start. So anybody can start. B, as a leader, there's more responsibility on my shoulders to ensure that that I do it, and then also, making sure that I'm creating the team culture where this is encouraged and this is something that we do. So I think the example about that you just shared is great, right? If someone is a little bit at the periphery, there is a bubble around them, and we kind of bring them in. It didn't take much, right? But now maybe the ice is being broken, and we'll never be perfect.
That's true. That's precisely what we're saying. The ice has been broken, and now gradually it I hope it will become better over time.
Yeah, and we sometimes we unsure what to say, and you say what language should I use? I mean, isn't it just better to say, look, I'm sorry, I don't know which language to use, but I only speak Russian. So I ask you, how are you? Good morning. So it's there is a way to go around things. And making sure that people feel acknowledged and they're not there in a bubble, as you said.
When it comes to the influence of a leader, I recently read a very interesting research. It was from the pre-COVID times, actually, but it was directly related to those microaffirmations and the creating the in-group feeling. So basically, that's maybe even funny. The company introduced a new compulsory habit. You can question it itself, but that's what I did. When you enter the office, you just give a hug to everybody. It's just the only prerequisite, and the people started doing it, and you know what happened? The research is saying 3 years later, their performance in terms of the financial performance of the company rose by 300%.
Oh wow!
That's smashing. I will find the source, and I will quote it in the description of the podcast. Maybe the listeners want to read about it too. So it's just so simple. You come and you feel greeted. You see you're noticed. There is a physical proof in the as a hug, and it just drives the people belonging. It just drives the safety, the feeling of psychological safety, and it drives the performance. It's amazing.
Yeah, some human touch and attention. Yeah. So I think when people feel that, right? They feel they're part. I think and we probably want to. I'm sure we want to stay longer, right? And it's once we have this mutual trust and feel respected, we want. But when people leave a job, they, of course, there is a salary element and everything. But when people find a place where they feel that's I guess professional home for them, they don't leave it that quickly. They like to contribute. They feel part. They want the organization to be successful. So. I think it's all.
We all care about our gang, yes. So we want it to go bigger, stronger, and more a better place.
Yeah, for sure. When we feel like we belong, right? Then it's part of us. It's an extension of who we are, of our ego, or whatever it is. So, yeah, for sure. It makes a difference, and it's as you said, it's in our hand to do it. They don't require to set up a huge. Organizational program. Even, sometimes I learned that one of the things I need to be careful with when I tell people, let's say I have a workshop with some leaders and we talk about inclusion, right? And we say, what do we need to do? We can do differently, start doing, and sometimes in order to become more inclusive organization, right? So I need to be very specific because for some I will need to be very specific. We're talking about what each one of us can do as a human being, as an individual, as a leader, and not say what we need to do as an organization. Because when we talk about an organization, you have some people will immediately come up and say, "Oh, we need to have like this whatever fancy program, or we need to change the structure there." I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not saying it will not help, but what can you do in a way? We as us in the room, what can we do on a daily basis? And a lot of it.
And the amazing research on the brain functioning and also on how the culture influences our brain. I just was in a lecture of Professor Mai Nguyen. I think she's so inspiring. She does a lot of research on the cognition and on the brain. That's just amazing. So what she was saying, she's saying that it's true that we are all subjected to culture. It may be, for example, the organizational culture. And at the same time, what we forget, which we might have been unaware of, we also influence the culture ourselves as every little tiny individual. So that's basically quite logical in physics. Anybody who had any physics at school would understand that if object A influences object B, then the object B influences object A. It's strikingly logical. It stays in line with all we know about natural science, and we are a part of the nature. So this means that if we want to change the culture in the organization, we can start from those little behaviors that we are fully in control of as every little individual.
Yeah, definitely. It's start from now, like doing more of that. And also, as I mentioned a few times, a little bit analyzing my network and organization and figuring out, are there any people that I tend not to do it, or maybe do something else actually with them. So, and it's, it's about consciousness a lot, because it doesn't require a lot from us. It's very small behavior, but we just need to remember doing those. And I would have, as I said, I will have post-it sometimes if it's a virtual call. I'm reminding myself how to pronounce different names, reminding myself few actions that I want to make sure that I practice during a certain call, and I'll do that. I just if it helps me to ensure that the people I'm interacting with feel good, feel motivated, feel appreciated, feel valued, that writing the small post-its is nothing, and so some of the ways I will nudge myself, right, to stay inclusive in different contexts.
And maybe the last topic which I will want to touch is the sustainability of it. Now I'm having a lot of observations when we look at the mass influx of people from Ukraine to Poland. And also as a company, we give a lot of advice and consulting in terms of how to include the people from Ukraine in the new workplaces. And I can confirm that many Polish employers here are absolutely motivated to give a job, to give the stability and to help. So it's very strong. The motivation is very strong on both sides. And at the same time, it is here and now. So here and now, there's a, yes, wow, let's do it. There is this enthusiasm, and I can see how this will be diminishing, wearing off simply over time. So over time, they inevitably will discover that maybe they need to improve a little bit in terms of the language, or maybe that the way of working in some environments here in Poland is a little bit different than what it used to be for some people in Ukraine. So there will be those little surprises that will be distancing the people away. And the idea of sustainability is about like having a checkpoint, yes, making sure, like, I don't know, every 3 weeks, every month, maybe, are we still being inclusive? Are we still sharing those smiles? Are we still asking the questions with interest? Are we still maybe have we asked for the 5th time how to pronounce the name because I'm just learning to do it the right way, and I find it's also a great role of the HR department. In our daily work as specialists, contributors, leaders, we tend to be very busy. Sometimes we might just forget those things, I would say innocently. I mean, not willingly, that's what I mean. And maybe the role of an HR department would be creating opportunities for those little refreshers, for those little checkpoints. How is your condition now? Have the new people really started being, let's say, sucked into the organization in the positive sense, I mean? Or is there this invisible bubble that has started appearing around them because they, for example, they turned out not to be so active in virtual meetings due to the language difference or whatever technological difference? So creating those checkpoints might be a good idea for the HR people. What's your experience here, Ben?
Yeah, I think there are a few, we're talking about a few things, right? First of all, there is, I know about the tragedy in Ukraine. I read about that every day a few times, but I don't know the specifics regarding to Poland. But what we also know is that the reason what you're talking about is so important because there's, in many times I'm talking about change, right? There is the honeymoon phase that, okay, that's great. And we are inclusive. And, in Poland, we receive the people, people from Ukraine. But then after 2-3 months, I get tired of it. And maybe we start having some tensions. And now we start to have fault lines between, I'm not saying it will happen, but I'm saying that's something that happens. Like I work a lot on mergers and acquisitions.
With high probability. Mm-hmm.
So mergers and acquisition, right at the beginning, it's the new us and celebration, and we are one company. But after 3 months, people start saying, well, I don't like the way they do things. And now I get the manager I don't like. And those two people that came from that organization, I really don't understand how they work. And you start to create those feelings of not for everyone, but some people start, it will be more difficult for them. And that's why I think just maybe we talk a lot about microaffirmation, and I wonder if that's enough. Or in this case, actually, the HR needs to ensure. And now I'm talking about something bigger, but just because I understand how this topic is so important, is different situations, opportunities for people to work together on projects to create a shared identity for the people that have joined. Maybe even being there present. And as you said, checking in how things how people are working, maybe joint projects, events, some sessions to learn about each other and understand where we are coming from so we don't misinterpret different behaviors. So, and to that, of course, we add the individual microinformation. I'm mentioning all that in addition because just it sounds to me that the scale of what you're talking about here may require an organization to say, hey, we really need to think how we're creating this inclusive environment for everyone, that we understand that it takes a lot for people to adapt quickly to a new culture and for people to bring in and take care of people that coming from new culture at these numbers. So being proactive, being at the front of it, having some program, having some ideas, having conversations with employees and something that we talked about earlier on, Monika, it's maybe, should I call you Katarzyna? Maybe
Monika is my usual name. It was just an example. Thank you.
So it's about creating, maybe finding how we create a shared identity for all of us together, joining in. Because I understand there's large numbers, right? So different programs, asking the leaders what support they need, maybe creating hobby groups that combine people coming from different cultures. So now they have something in common. So I think there is, in a situation like we described now, I think HR has a crucial role to play. And they have, it's important that they will think a little bit proactively and understanding that they are there. They can make a huge difference in how they support the people that have been displaced by the war and how they support managers that maybe for the first time in their lives, or colleagues at the first time in their life, they need to make space to people that are culturally different than them and show empathy, right, for the long run, for what the ones that are coming to Poland are experiencing. Maybe it's about checking about their families, how they can help. So I think there's a lot of good work to do. And I think it's a huge purpose, I think, for organizations in Poland and other locations now to be there and do the best they can to support the people that just ran away from the war.
A huge opportunities to improve in inclusion in practice, and microaffirmations might be just one of the most simple, approachable, obtainable, and also impactful ways to do so. So I'm really glad we could have this conversation here. Before I say goodbye to our listeners, I would like to still leave the floor to you to ask you what's the message that you would like to make, the cherry on the cake, the key message that you would like to leave us with.
The key message, I think, is that there's a lot in our hands to do as leaders and employees in creating a productive and inclusive and supporting work environment for everyone that we work with. It's up to us, and I think it's also up to us to sometimes take a step back and reflect a little bit. Is there anything I can do differently, better, start doing, stop doing? So I bring my best contribution as a human being to the organization, and of course as a leader and colleague.
I'm taking this empowerment and the optimism that you are sharing with us. Thank you a lot for being here, Ben.
Pleasure, Monika. Thank you for inviting me. It was great.
Three main conclusions which I'm taking along from this conversation. First of all, micro behaviors, small behaviors, but they make a huge impact. The second, leaders lead the way. But every member of a team makes a difference and can become a role model. And finally, it's all right to double check on how to pronounce someone's name. You can find all notes and links to this episode at astepahead.pro/004. Please also enroll into a newsletter. You will get all news regarding new content. And by the way, if you're a LinkedIn user, you will also find a Step Ahead by Monika Chutnik profile in LinkedIn. I'm inviting you to like it, to click it, and to follow. There are some other episodes which I could recommend when you are interested in the topic of micro behaviors, but also of psychological safety in a team. Psychological safety is the topic of the previous episode I was recording with Katarzyna Romanowicz, and you can find it at astepahead.pro/003. I also had a very interesting conversation from the corporate perspective on the human-centered leadership and really a shift of focus in the way how leaders need to start perceiving the role and their teams. You can find it under astepahead.pro/001, the very first episode conversation with Kinga Jaśkowiak. Well, I'm just making my first steps. Please do help me reach more listeners and share this episode with just one another person. I will be very grateful for this. Thank you very much and talk to you next time.